In the late 16th century, Japan under Toyotomi Hideyoshi was finally united after years of warfare. But in 1591, just 1 year after unification, he set about preparing an army to take Korea. Hideyoshi actually expressed his desire to invade China and had asked for military access through Korea, but the Korean king Seonjo of the Joseon dynasty was a vassal state of China, so he refused. However, some speculate he knew this would be the case and only intended to take Korea and keep thousands of recently unemployed samurai from rebellion. The first invasion force of a few thousand landed in April 1592 and quickly occupied Busan. Tens of thousands of reinforcements started arriving in Korea, and by May they'd occupied most of the south of the Gyeongsang province. The Koreans tried to counterattack in early June with around 100,000 men, but despite their advanced artillery technology, the well-equipped and experienced Japanese infantry crushed them at the Battle of Cheongju. This victory allowed the Japanese to advance north and capture Hanseong, modern-day Seoul, shortly after the king fled. One Japanese division then marched east and took Wonju, while another division took Pyongyang, which had been deserted after another failed counterattack. But in mid-June, Yi Sun-sin took command of the Korean Navy. The Korean fleet had been all but destroyed during the initial invasion, but Yi helped revolutionize the navy by introducing turtle ships. These had numerous oars to increase speed, cannons facing in every direction, could fire smoke screens to hide their movement, and may have been protected by an iron shell. Although Korea didn't have many ships, they were able to win numerous battles against the Japanese navy, which mainly consisted of ships once used by pirates that used to frequently raid Korea. For instance, at the Battle of Okpo, Japan lost 30 of their 50 ships, at Hansan Island they lost 101, and at Busan they lost 92. This meant Japan could not resupply their troops in the north by sea, but had to transport supplies to Busan and then take them overland. But tens of thousands of Koreans had joined guerrilla units and volunteer armies, the strongest of which operated out of Jeolla, a province not yet under Japanese control. These harassed Japanese supply lines retook some towns and even marched on Hanseong at one point. This put Japan on the defensive, but in the north, a general named Koro Kigemasa continued to advance. He captured 2 Korean princes, but nearly got the Jurchens to enter the war on Korea's side after he unsuccessfully attacked them. But finally, in September, the Chinese Wanli Emperor decided to get involved. A small force he had sent to Pyongyang to assess the invasion was crushed, so a Chinese army of 40,000 men invaded the north the following January. In just a couple of weeks they were able to recapture Pyongyang and Kaesong, but their advance south was halted at the Battle of Baekjekwon at the end of the month. A stalemate then ensued for a few months and both sides suffered heavily. But in the spring of 1593 the Japanese ran out of supplies and the Chinese threatened to bring an army of 400,000 troops. So the Japanese started pulling back to Busan and ended peace negotiations. However, the diplomats on both sides lied to their respective leaders. Hideyoshi was led to believe that the Chinese were suing for peace, while the Wanli Emperor thought that the Japanese would become a vassal state, so no real agreements were made. With no agreements and unwilling to accept any terms of surrender, Hideyoshi launched a second invasion with 140,000 men in 1597. The Japanese had some initial success once again, largely because Admiral Yi had been arrested during the peace. They captured Busan and marched west to take the Jeolla province. But Admiral Yi was quickly put back in charge of the navy and stopped Japanese supplies from arriving in Korea once again. Plus, the Chinese were quick to send troops to Korea, and the Koreans had spent the last couple of years reforming their army and command structure. So in September they pushed back a Japanese assault on Hanseong. However, the Japanese managed to repel a Korean assault on Ulsan and continued to hold onto the southern territory for another year. But in late 1598, the Koreans and Chinese launched a major offensive against Japanese positions. This corresponded with the death of Hideyoshi, so the Japanese began to finally withdraw. By December, the Japanese had withdrawn from Korea and the war was over. Hundreds of thousands died during these invasions, especially in Korea where the infrastructure and land was in ruin. In Japan, the war caused Hideyoshi's clan to be ousted from power just a couple years later, and the Tokugawa shogunate was established. And the Chinese Ming dynasty, who already had a poor economy, looked weak during this war. So the Jurchens in the north invaded China and Korea shortly afterwards and established the Qing dynasty.